system, showing how the 6 known planets moved around the Sun. Uranus and Neptune were yet to be discovered. It's the centrepiece of the library, and we like a good library. That was created for George Booth, an Earl of Warrington, as part of extensive remodelling of the house by the obscure John Norris in the early 18th century. The Earl 1688. The local rector drew a thick line across the page. He knew it was the end of an era. 2 years previously, John's only surviving daughter, his 36-year-old daughter Mary, had married William Blathwaite, a rising civil servant, and by the end of the century, this energetic, self-made man had totally transformed the Tudor manor his wife inherited, creating this great mansion set beneath a spur of the Cotswolds. Despite his loyalty to James II in the Glorious Revolution, a rare fluency in Dutch, coupled with an unusual gift for administration, recommended Blathwaite And this is the south and west fronts of the hall, looking over the 18th century park. And in this photograph, Farnborough's entrance hall has a fine rococo plasterwork ceiling and classical busts are in niches set around the room up here. So it was home of the Holbeck family for over 300 years. It looks out over a well-wooded patchwork of fields and hedgerows to the scarp of Edge Hill and the Malvern Hills beyond. It's still largely as created between 1745 and 1750 by William Holbeck. Oh, I like that house. I think there's something, oh yeah, there's something Latin, Gloria Deo in. Let's have a bit more coffee. So this is Felbrigg Hall, Gardens and Estate in Norfolk. In 1738, William Wyndham II, accompanied by his multi-talented tutor Benjamin Stillingfleet, it's a great name, whose sartorial habits are the origin of the term blue stocking, set off on a protracted 5-year grand tour. As soon as William succeeded to Felbrigg in 1749, he asked James Payne to remodel part of the interior to provide a suitable setting for the paintings he had acquired, some of the best of which now hang in the intimate cabinet room in the west wing. Here, small Dutch and Italian canvases including 26 delightful gouaches by Giovanni Battista Passeri are set 3 deep on crimson damask, displayed in frames that William commissioned and in a carefully balanced arrangement which he worked out. Sounds like there's a Gothic library as well in there. I like that, gorgeous. Oh, here is the Latin. So it says, most striking are the huge stone letters carved into the parapet crowning the facade, which spell out the inscription Gloria Deo in excelsis. This balanced composition is almost certainly the work of Robert Limming of Blickling. Bit more coffee. So this is the same place. This is the Great Hall, which was remodelled in a heavy Jacobean style, circa 1840, when the carved oak pedestal table was probably made for the room. This one. And then it says such as the huge tree